I watched the snow pile up against my windshield and knew this was going to be one of those nights where everything that could go wrong would go wrong. What I didn't expect was that the biggest problem wouldn't be the 18 inches of heavy, wet snow burying Route 47 in northern Illinois, but a 40-something woman in a Mercedes SUV who thought her Homeowner Association bylaws trumped a state-declared snow emergency. My name is Henry Norton, and I've been running Norton Snow Removal and Landscaping in McHenry County for the past 12 years. The business started small, just me and a beat-up Ford with a plow attachment, taking on driveways and small parking lots. Over the years, I built it up to a fleet of 6 trucks and a crew of 8 guys who knew the difference between a good clean push and the half-done garbage some contractors tried to pass off as snow removal. We took pride in our work, and during winter, we had contracts with the county to help clear secondary roads when the main crews got overwhelmed. Tonight was one of those nights. The National Weather Service had been tracking this storm for 3 days, and everyone knew it was coming in hard. By 4 in the afternoon, the governor had declared a state of emergency for the northern third of Illinois. The county emergency management director activated all the auxiliary plow operators, which meant my phone started ringing before the first flake even fell. I had 3 of my trucks deployed to different sectors, and I took the big rig, my 2024 Ford F550 with the 10-foot plow blade and undercarriage salt spreader, to cover Route 47 from Woodstock up through Hebron. The snow started around 6 in the evening, right as rush hour was limping to a close. Within an hour, the roads were covered. By 8, visibility was down to maybe 50 feet. I'd been running my route for 3 hours straight, making pass after pass, when I got the call from dispatch that changed everything. "Henry, we need you to divert through Willowbrook Estates," the dispatcher said over the radio. "The main plow for that sector broke down, and we've got reports of cars stuck on Meadowview Drive. Can you make a pass through there, Willowbrook Estates?" I knew the neighborhood well. It was one of those planned communities that sprung up in the early 2000s. All McMansions on quarter-acre lots with strict HOA rules about everything from mailbox colors to when you could put your garbage cans out. I'd bid on their snow removal contract 3 years running and never got it. They always went with the lowest bidder, and then I'd hear complaints all winter about how their contractor never showed up or did a terrible job. But that wasn't my problem. Tonight, I was coming through as county auxiliary, which meant I had the legal authority to clear any public road in my designated area. "Copy that, dispatch. Heading to Willowbrook now," I radioed back. I turned off Route 47 onto Thornwood Avenue, the main entrance to Willowbrook Estates. The subdivision had maybe 200 homes arranged in a grid pattern with cutesy street names like Meadowview Drive, Sunset Ridge Court, and Harmony Lane. The streets were all public roads, maintained by the county, but you wouldn't know it from the way the HOA acted. They had their own signs at every entrance proclaiming Willowbrook Estates, a planned community, and listing about 15 different rules visitors had to follow. The snow was coming down so hard my wipers could barely keep up. I had my amber strobes flashing, light bar blazing, and I was moving at maybe 10 miles an hour, pushing a good 6 inches of snow with each pass. Meadowview Drive was the main interior street, running the length of the subdivision from east to west. I could see a few cars that had tried to make it home and gotten stuck, abandoned at angles in the middle of the road. My job was to clear a path so emergency vehicles could get through if needed, and so people could at least get to work in the morning if the storm let up. I was about halfway down Meadowview, pushing a heavy load of snow toward the intersection with Sunset Ridge Court, when I saw the headlights. A black Mercedes GLE was pulled diagonally across the road, completely blocking both lanes. I slowed the truck to a stop, put it in park, and waited. Sometimes people got disoriented in heavy snow and stopped in stupid places. I figured once the driver saw a massive plow truck with every light in the world flashing, they'd realize they needed to move. The Mercedes didn't move. I waited another 30 seconds, then hit my air horn. 2 short bursts that echoed through the snowy night. Still nothing. I could see someone sitting in the driver's seat, but they weren't moving. I grabbed my radio. "Dispatch, I've got a vehicle blocking Meadowview Drive in Willowbrook, attempting to make contact with the driver." "Copy that, Henry." "Keep us posted." I pulled on my insulated jacket, grabbed my flashlight, and climbed down from the truck. The snow was already over my boots, and the wind was whipping it into drifts. I walked up to the Mercedes, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, and tapped on the driver's window. The window rolled down about 2 inches. A woman's face appeared, pinched and angry. She had that specific haircut, the one that's short in the back and longer in the front, dyed an aggressive shade of blonde with dark roots showing. She was wearing a puffy white jacket that probably cost more than I made in a week, and her lips were pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "Can I help you?" she said, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for telemarketers and door-to-door salespeople. "Yes, madam." "I'm with the county snow removal. I need you to move your vehicle so I can clear this road." "I don't think so," she said. I blinked snow out of my eyes and tried to process what I'd just heard. "I'm sorry, what?" I said. "I don't think so. You're not authorized to be in this neighborhood. This is a private community." "Madam, these are public roads. I'm with the county emergency snow removal. There's a state of emergency declared. I need to clear this street." "No, you need to leave. We have our own snow removal contractor and they'll handle it when they get here. You're not plowing our streets." I felt my jaw tighten. I'd dealt with difficult people before, but this was a new level of stupid. "Madam, your contractor isn't here and the snow isn't stopping. I have authorization from McHenry County Emergency Management to clear any public road in this sector. That includes this one. Now please move your vehicle." "Show me your authorization," she demanded. "It's in my truck, but you can call the county emergency dispatch and they'll confirm it." "I'm not calling anyone. I'm the president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowner Association, and I'm telling you that you're not plowing these streets. Our bylaws clearly state that only approved contractors can perform maintenance on community property. These aren't community property. These are public roads. They're in our community, which makes them subject to our rules." I took a deep breath, feeling the cold air burn my lungs. This was insane. "Madam, I don't know how else to explain this. When there's a state of emergency, normal rules don't apply. I have a legal obligation to clear these roads. If you don't move your vehicle, you're interfering with emergency operations. I'm not going anywhere, and if you try to push snow on our lawns or damage any property, I'll have you arrested and I'll sue the county. The snow has to go somewhere, madam. I'll do my best to minimize impact, but clearing the road is the priority." "Then I guess you're not clearing the road." She rolled up her window. I stood there in the driving snow, watching her sit in her warm Mercedes with her arms crossed, staring straight ahead like she'd just won some kind of victory. I walked back to my truck, brushed off the snow, and climbed in. My phone was already ringing. It was Garrett from the County Emergency Management Office. "Henry, what's going on out there? We're getting calls about Willowbrook. I've got an HOA president blocking the road. She won't move, says I'm not authorized to plow here." Garrett let out a long, tired sigh. "Of course she does." Okay, let me guess. Is it Brenda Peterson? I don't know her name. Blonde, late 40s, black Mercedes. That's Brenda. She does this every time. Last year she tried to fine one of our guys for plowing snow onto the grass median. Look, you have full authority to be there. If she won't move, call the sheriff. They can cite her for obstruction. How long is that going to take, in this weather? Could be an hour, could be 3. They're slammed with accidents and stuck vehicles. I looked out at the snow piling up on the street. In an hour, this road would be completely impassable. People who were stuck at work wouldn't be able to get home. Emergency vehicles wouldn't be able to get through. And all because one woman with an inflated sense of authority thought she could override county emergency operations. What if I just plow around her? I asked. Can you? Not really. The street's too narrow, but I could clear what I can access and come back later. Do what you can, Henry. I'll try to get someone from the sheriff's office out there, but I can't make promises. I hung up and stared at the Mercedes, still sitting there blocking the road. Through the snow, I could see Brenda's silhouette, motionless and stubborn. I put the truck in gear and backed up slowly, planning to clear what I could of the street behind me and then try the parallel streets. But as I was backing up, I saw headlights approaching from behind. A McHenry County Road Department truck, one of the big tandem axle dumps with a massive plow blade, was coming up Meadowview. The truck stopped behind me, and I saw the driver climb out. It was Rick Sampson, one of the full-time county guys. I'd worked with him on several big storms. He was in his late 50s, built like a fire hydrant with a gray beard and zero tolerance for nonsense. "Henry, what's the holdup?" he called out through the snow. I climbed down and met him between our trucks. HOA president, parked across the road, won't let me through. Rick looked past me at the Mercedes and shook his head. "Brenda Peterson?" "That's what Garrett said." "Yeah, she's a piece of work. She tried to get me fired last year for knocking over one of their decorative mailbox posts. Thing was already half rotted and fell over when I pushed snow past it." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Yeah, this is Rick Sampson with the road department. I need a sheriff's deputy to Meadowview Drive in Willowbrook Estates. We've got a vehicle obstructing snow removal operations during a state of emergency." He listened for a moment. "I understand you're busy. We'll be here." He hung up and looked at me. "They said minimum 2 hours. 2 hours. Are you kidding me? Multiple pileups on Route 14 and they've got cars stuck everywhere. We're low priority." He walked past me toward the Mercedes. I followed. Rick knocked on Brenda's window hard enough that I was surprised the glass didn't crack. She rolled it down an inch, same as before. "Madam, I'm Rick Sampson with McHenry County Road Department. You need to move this vehicle immediately. And I already told your friend here that you're not authorized to be in this community. Madam, I'm a county employee performing emergency services. I don't need authorization from your HOA. You're not plowing our streets. We have our own contractor." Rick's face was turning red, though that might have been from the cold. "Your contractor isn't here. We are. And if you don't move this vehicle in the next 60 seconds, I'm calling the sheriff to have you arrested for obstruction." "You can't arrest me. I'm protecting our community." "Madam, you're not protecting anything. You're preventing us from doing our jobs, which means emergency vehicles can't get through, which means if someone has a heart attack or a house fire, they could die because you're sitting here playing Homeowner Association cop. That's not my problem. You should have gotten proper authorization before entering our community." Rick stared at her for a long moment, then turned to me. "Come on." We walked back toward the trucks, and I could see Rick was fuming. "I've been doing this job for 23 years, and I've never wanted to push someone's car off the road as much as I do right now. So what do? We wait for the sheriff and we do our jobs." He looked at his truck, then at mine, then back at the Mercedes. A slow grin spread across his face. "Actually, you go ahead and work on the other streets. I'll wait here and keep working this section. You can't get past her, I know, but I can keep plowing the part of the road I can access. Snow's got to go somewhere, right?" I looked at the Mercedes, then at Rick's massive plow blade, then back at Rick. "You're not going to. I'm going to do my job. If snow happens to pile up around an illegally parked vehicle, well, that's just the nature of snow removal operations." I couldn't help but grin. "You're evil." "I'm efficient. Now go take care of the other streets before they become impassable." I climbed back in my truck and carefully maneuvered around Rick's vehicle, using someone's driveway to get past the blockage. I spent the next hour working through Willowbrook Estates, clearing Sunset Ridge Court, Harmony Lane, and all the little cul-de-sacs. The snow was relentless, and I knew I'd have to make multiple passes before the night was over. Every time I circled back toward Meadowview Drive, I could see Rick's truck, strobes flashing, working back and forth on his section of the road. About an hour and a half after I'd left him there, my radio crackled. "Henry, you might want to come see this." It was Rick, and I could hear the amusement in his voice. I finished the street I was on and headed back to Meadowview. When I got there, I couldn't believe what I saw. Brenda's Mercedes was still in the same spot, but it was now surrounded by walls of snow at least 4 feet high. Rick had been methodically plowing the street, and every time he made a pass, he pushed the snow right up against her vehicle. The Mercedes looked like it was sitting in a snow fort. The drifts completely covered the bottom third of the doors, and snow was piled up over the hood. Rick was parked about 30 feet away, leaning against his truck, drinking coffee from a thermos. I pulled up next to him and rolled down my window. "You buried her," I said, trying not to laugh. "I cleared the road," Rick said innocently. "Snow has to go somewhere." "Not my fault she parked in a stupid spot. Can she even get out? Don't know, don't care. I did my job." As if on cue, the Mercedes' engine started. We watched as Brenda tried to move. The wheels spun uselessly. She was completely stuck, buried in the very snow Rick had been hired to remove. She tried reversing, then going forward, but the car wasn't going anywhere. After about a minute of this, her door opened, and she tried to get out. The snow was packed so tight against the door that she could only open it about 8 inches. She was stuck inside her own car, trapped by her own stubborn stupidity. Rick took another sip of coffee. "You know what's really funny? The snow's not stopping. By morning, she'll have another 6 inches on top of what's already there," my radio squawked. "All units, this is dispatch. Be advised, the Weather Service has upgraded the winter storm warning. We're now expecting 20 to 24 inches total accumulation." Rick and I looked at each other, then at the Mercedes. Brenda had stopped trying to move and was sitting in her car, talking on her phone. Probably calling her lawyer, the police, the governor, and anyone else she could think of. "I should probably get back to work," I said. "Yeah, me too. I've got about 3 more passes to make on this street, then I'm moving to the next sector." "You're going to push more snow on her car, aren't you?" "I'm going to clear the road. Where the snow goes is determined by physics and the direction of my plow blade." I spent the next 2 hours clearing the rest of Willowbrook Estates. The snow just kept coming, heavy and wet, the kind that's perfect for building snowmen and terrible for driving. I saw lights on in most of the houses, people peering out their windows at the plow truck rumbling past. A few of them came out to wave thanks. One guy on Sunset Ridge Court even brought me a cup of hot chocolate, which I appreciated more than he could know. Around midnight, I circled back to Meadowview Drive. Rick's truck was gone, moved on to another area, but the scene he'd left behind was spectacular. Brenda's Mercedes was now almost completely buried. Only the roof and the upper part of the windows were visible above the snow. It looked like someone had tried to build an igloo around a car and gotten carried away. The street itself was clear, a perfect path of bare pavement with walls of snow on either side. Rick had done his job flawlessly. The snow had to go somewhere, and that somewhere happened to be exactly where Brenda Peterson had decided to park. I was about to keep moving when I saw red and blue lights approaching. A McHenry County Sheriff's deputy vehicle carefully made its way down the cleared street and stopped near the buried Mercedes. I pulled over and waited, curious to see how this would play out. The deputy got out, a young guy maybe in his late 20s, and stood there staring at the snow-covered car. He walked around it once, then pulled out his flashlight and tapped on the window. I could see Brenda inside, and she rolled down her window. Snow fell into the car. The deputy talked to her for a few minutes, then walked over to my truck. I rolled down my window. "You with the county snow removal?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Henry Norton, auxiliary plow operator. Can you explain what happened here? I came through around 9 o'clock to clear this street." That Mercedes was parked blocking the road. The driver, who I understand is the HOA president, refused to move. Said I wasn't authorized to plow in this neighborhood. I called it in to county emergency management. One of the full-time road department guys, Rick Sampson, showed up. He tried to get her to move too, and she refused. So he did his job and cleared the road. The snow had to go somewhere. The deputy nodded slowly, and it went on her car. The snow went where the plow pushed it. The car happened to be in the way. He tried to suppress a grin. "Okay. Wait here a minute." He went back to the Mercedes and talked to Brenda again. This conversation was longer and seemed more heated. I could see Brenda gesturing wildly, pointing at her buried car, at my truck, at the snow in general. The deputy remained calm, occasionally shaking his head or saying something brief. Finally, he walked back to my truck. "So here's the situation. Miss Peterson claims you and the other operator maliciously buried her vehicle. She wants to press charges for destruction of property and harassment. And what do you think? I think she parked her car across a public road during a state of emergency and refused to move when ordered to do so by county emergency personnel. I think the plow operators did their jobs exactly as they're supposed to. And I think Miss Peterson is lucky I'm not citing her for obstruction and reckless endangerment. So no charges against you. Hell no, against her. I should, but honestly, I think she's learned her lesson. Her car's going to be stuck there until we can get a tow truck out, which probably won't be until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. She's already called 3 companies, and none of them will come out in this storm." He glanced back at the Mercedes. "She wants me to make you dig her car out." "That's not happening." I told her that. I explained that you're assigned to clear public roads, not perform personal vehicle recovery. She didn't like it. I'm shocked. The deputy laughed. "Look, I need to clear this call and get back to actual emergencies. You're free to go. Keep doing what you're doing. What about her? She can sit in her car and think about her life choices, or she can walk home. She lives 3 houses down." I looked at the Mercedes, then at the snow still falling. "She's really only 3 houses down." "Yeah. She could be in her warm house right now, but instead she's sitting in a freezing car, buried in snow, all because she couldn't let go of her little power trip." After the deputy left, I sat there for a moment, just looking at the scene. Brenda was still in her car, refusing to get out, probably because admitting defeat would hurt too much. The snow kept falling, already starting to fill in the tracks my truck had made. I had at least 4 more hours of work ahead of me, and the storm showed no signs of letting up. I put the truck in gear and continued my route. Over the next few hours, I made pass after pass through Willowbrook Estates and the surrounding areas. The snow was approaching 16 inches now, and my truck was working hard, pushing heavy loads with each pass. Around 3 in the morning, I swung back through Meadowview Drive. Brenda's Mercedes was still there, now with another 3 inches of snow on top of the existing pile. The car was completely buried, just a white mound with a slight rectangular shape. But the Mercedes was gone from inside the snow pile. She must have finally given up and walked home. As I was making my pass, an older man came out of one of the houses, waving his arms. I stopped the truck and he jogged over. "Are you the one who buried Brenda's car?" he called up to me. Here we go, I thought. Another HOA member coming to complain. "I'm clearing the road, sir. The snow has to go somewhere." To my surprise, he started laughing. "Oh, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. That woman's been making everyone's lives miserable for 2 years. Do you know she fined me $300 because my Christmas lights were the wrong shade of white? I'm sorry. She said our community standards require pure white lights, and mine had a warm tone. Warm white versus cool white. She made me take them all down and buy new ones." He was grinning now. Seeing her car buried like that is the best thing that's happened in this neighborhood since she got elected HOA president. "Well, I was just doing my job. And you did it beautifully. Listen, I'm Mark Davidson. I'm on the HOA board, and I want you to know that not all of us are crazy like Brenda. Some of us appreciate you guys coming out in this weather to keep the roads clear." "I appreciate that, Mr. Davidson. If she tries to cause trouble for you, let me know. I'll back you up that she was blocking the road and refusing to move. I was watching the whole thing from my living room window." "Thank you. That might actually be helpful." We talked for a few more minutes. He explained that Brenda had been HOA president for 2 years, and in that time, she'd turned the neighborhood into a minefield of petty rules and aggressive enforcement. She'd sued 3 homeowners for various violations, fined dozens more, and generally made herself the most hated person in Willowbrook Estates. There'd been a recall petition going around, but it needed 60% of homeowners to sign it, and they were still short. "This might actually help," Mark said, looking at the buried Mercedes. "Hard to claim you're protecting the community when you're stopping emergency services and getting your own car buried in the process." I finished my conversation with Mark and got back to work. The snow was finally starting to let up around 4 in the morning. The heavy, constant fall reduced to lighter flurries, and I could actually see more than 50 feet in front of my truck. I made 2 more complete circuits of my assigned area, including Willowbrook Estates, and by 6 in the morning, the roads were as clear as they were going to get until the sun came up, and we could see what we were really dealing with. I was exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline when I got the call to return to the county maintenance yard. All the plow operators were being rotated out for a rest break and fuel. I guided my truck through the snow-covered streets, passing a few early morning commuters who decided to brave the roads. Route 47 was down to 2 narrow lanes, even after all our work, with walls of snow on either side. At the yard, I topped off my fuel, checked the truck over for damage, and grabbed more coffee and a breakfast sandwich from the catering truck the county had brought in. Rick was there, looking as tired as I felt, covered in snow and road salt. "Heard you had a visit from the sheriff," he said, sitting down next to me on a bench in the heated garage. "Yeah. Deputy came out around midnight. Brenda tried to press charges." "Of course she did. What'd he say?" "Said we were doing our jobs and she was lucky he didn't cite her for obstruction." Rick grunted. "Good. You know she called the county supervisor at 10 o'clock at night, screaming about how we were deliberately destroying her property." What'd he say? Told her to move her damn car next time. Then he hung up. Rick took a long drink of coffee. You see the car when you left, completely buried. Looked like an igloo. Beautiful. You know what the best part is? The storm's breaking now, which means it's going to get colder. That wet snow is going to freeze solid. Her car's going to be locked in ice until we get a warm spell. How long? Weather says it's staying below freezing for at least 5 days. We sat there in comfortable silence. Two guys who just spent the night fighting a snowstorm, enjoying the warmth of the garage and the satisfaction of a job well done. Around 7, the day shift supervisor came in and told us we were officially off duty until 6 that evening, when we'd be back for round 2 of cleanup. I drove home carefully, my personal truck feeling light and maneuverable after 12 hours in the heavy plow vehicle. The roads were still bad, but passable. The sun was coming up, and I could see the extent of the storm's damage. 21 inches of snow had fallen, one of the biggest single-day totals in northern Illinois in the past decade. Trees were bent under the weight, power lines sagged, and every car on the street was buried to its windows. I got home, took the longest, hottest shower of my life, and fell into bed. I was asleep in seconds. My phone woke me up 6 hours later. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Is this Henry Norton?" a woman's voice asked. Not Brenda, thankfully. "Yes, this is Henry, Mr. Norton. My name is Patricia Cole. I'm an attorney representing the Willowbrook Estates Homeowner Association." I sat up in bed, suddenly very awake. "Okay. I'm calling to inform you that the HOA is pursuing legal action against you and McHenry County for damages related to last night's snow removal operations. Miss Brenda Peterson's vehicle sustained significant damage due to your negligent and malicious actions." "I'm sorry, what damage?" "I cleared snow from a public road. Her car was blocking that road. You deliberately buried her vehicle in snow, knowing it would cause damage. The car's door seals are damaged from the pressure of the packed snow, the paint is scratched from ice and salt, and the entire vehicle will need extensive detailing. We're estimating damages of at least $8,000. I was fully awake now and getting angry. "Let me make sure I understand this. Your client parked her car blocking a public road during a state of emergency, refused to move when ordered to do so by county emergency personnel, and now she's claiming I'm responsible for damages because I did my job and cleared the road. Your job does not include burying private property in snow. My job is clearing roads. The snow has to go somewhere. If someone parks their car in a stupid place and refuses to move it, that's not my problem. We'll let a judge decide that. You should expect to be served with papers within the next few days." She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, trying to process what had just happened. I'd spent 12 hours in a snowstorm, keeping roads safe and clear, and now I was being sued for it. I called Garrett at the county emergency management office. He answered on the second ring. "Henry, hey, hell of a night, wasn't it?" "Garrett, I just got a call from a lawyer representing the Willowbrook HOA. They're suing me for burying Brenda Peterson's car." There was a long pause. "Are you kidding me?" I wish I was. "They're claiming $8,000 in damages." "Okay, don't panic. This is going to go nowhere. You were operating under county authority during a declared state of emergency. You have immunity. I'll get this to the county legal department right away. They'll handle it." "You're sure?" "Positive. This is exactly why we have these legal protections. You can't have plow operators worrying about getting sued every time they do their jobs. Let me make some calls." I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to relax, but my mind kept going back to Brenda's buried Mercedes and the lawsuit threat. At 6 that evening, I reported back to the county yard for the night shift. The day crews had made good progress, and most of the main roads were down to bare pavement. Our job was to clear the residential streets and subdivisions again, pushing back the snow that had drifted back during the day. When I got to the yard, Rick was already there, along with the day shift supervisor and 2 people I didn't recognize. One was a woman in her mid-40s wearing a business suit, and the other was a man in his 30s with a county ID badge. "Henry, this is Sarah Mitchell from the county legal department, and this is Dave Torres, our county board liaison," the supervisor said. "They want to talk to you about the incident in Willowbrook Estates." We moved to a conference room, and I spent the next hour going over everything that had happened. Sarah took detailed notes and asked specific questions about the timeline, what was said, and who witnessed everything. When I mentioned Mark Davidson, her eyes lit up. "And he's on the HOA board, and he saw the whole thing," that's what he said. "He gave me his number and said he'd back up my version of events." "That's perfect. And you said a sheriff's deputy responded?" "Yeah, around midnight." "I don't know his name, but he said Brenda was lucky he didn't cite her for obstruction." Sarah and Dave exchanged looks. "Okay, here's what's going to happen," Sarah said. "First, you're completely protected by Illinois law. When operating under county emergency authority during a declared state of emergency, you have sovereign immunity. That means you can't be sued for actions taken in the course of your duties unless you were grossly negligent or malicious, and nothing you've described even comes close to that standard. So they can't sue me. They can try, but any competent judge will throw it out immediately. Second, we're going to countersue." "Countersue?" Dave leaned forward. "Brenda Peterson obstructed emergency operations during a state of emergency. That's a misdemeanor under Illinois law, punishable by up to a year in jail and a $5,000 fine. She also created a public safety hazard by blocking a road that emergency vehicles needed to access. The county takes this very seriously." "We're not actually going to push for jail time," Sarah added. "But we are going to make it very clear that her actions were illegal, and that any attempt to sue you or the county will be met with aggressive legal action. We'll also be seeking reimbursement for the cost of the deputy's response and the additional time and resources spent dealing with her obstruction." "How much are we talking?" "Probably around $3,000, enough to make the point." I left the meeting feeling better but still uneasy. I didn't like being involved in legal action, even if I was on the right side of it. But I also couldn't let someone like Brenda get away with her behavior. If she could block emergency operations and then sue the people trying to help, what message did that send? That night shift was quieter than the previous one. The storm was over and we were just doing cleanup. I made my rounds through Willowbrook Estates, and when I got to Meadowview Drive, I saw that Brenda's Mercedes was still there, still buried. Someone had put up orange traffic cones around it, and there was a no parking sign that definitely hadn't been there before. A few people came out to wave as I drove past, and one woman actually applauded. Over the next few days, the story of Brenda's buried car spread through the community like wildfire. It made the local news, with a reporter standing in front of the snow pile describing how an HOA president had blocked emergency snow removal and gotten her car buried as a result. The reporter interviewed several Willowbrook residents, and every single one of them took the opportunity to air grievances about Brenda's leadership. The story went regional, then national. Within a week, it was on social media everywhere, with people from around the country sharing it and commenting on the karmic justice of the situation. Brenda tried to fight back. She gave an interview to a local news station claiming she was the victim of overzealous county workers who targeted her for trying to protect her community. She showed pictures of her car, which had finally been extracted from the snow after 3 days, displaying some minor scratches and water damage. She claimed the repairs would cost $12,000, an amount that kept growing with each interview, but public opinion was firmly against her. The recall petition got its 60% of signatures within 4 days, and an emergency HOA meeting was called. I wasn't there, but Mark Davidson called me afterward to tell me what happened. It was brutal, he said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Every single homeowner who spoke did so to call for her removal. People brought up every petty fine, every aggressive enforcement action, every time she'd made someone's life difficult over the past 2 years. She tried to defend herself, but she just dug the hole deeper. Finally, someone made a motion to remove her as president and bar her from holding any HOA office in the future. It passed unanimously, minus her vote. So she's out. She's out. We have a temporary president until the next election, and I can pretty much guarantee Brenda won't be running. The county's legal response came down a week after the storm. Sarah Mitchell filed a motion to dismiss the HOA's lawsuit, along with a counterclaim seeking reimbursement for costs and penalties for obstruction of emergency operations. The judge who got the case took one look at the facts and dismissed the HOA's suit immediately. The counterclaim moved forward. Brenda hired a lawyer, a guy from Chicago who specialized in HOA disputes. He tried to argue that she was protecting her community's rights, that the county had overstepped its authority, and that the Plow operators had acted maliciously. It didn't work. The judge listened to his arguments, reviewed the evidence, including the deputy's report and statements from Mark Davidson and other witnesses, and ruled in favor of the county. "Miss Peterson," the judge said at the hearing which I attended, "you blocked a public road during a state of emergency. You refused to move when ordered to do so by authorized county personnel. You created a public safety hazard. The fact that your car was buried in snow as a result of the road being cleared is entirely your own fault. If you had simply moved your vehicle as requested, none of this would have happened. You're fortunate that you're only facing a fine and not criminal charges." He ordered her to pay the county's costs, which totaled $4,800, and issued a written warning that any future interference with emergency operations would result in criminal prosecution. Brenda sat there in the courtroom, her face red, looking like she wanted to argue but knowing it would only make things worse. Outside the courthouse, a small group of reporters were waiting. They wanted to interview me, but Sarah had advised me to keep my comments brief. I told them I was glad it was over, and that I hoped everyone learned that emergency personnel need to be able to do their jobs without interference. Then I got in my truck and drove home. That should have been the end of it, but Brenda couldn't let it go. About a month after the court ruling, I got a call from one of my commercial clients. The owner of a small office building I'd been plowing for 5 years told me that he was switching to another contractor. When I asked why, he was evasive, but eventually admitted that Brenda had been calling my clients, telling them I was reckless and destructive, showing them pictures of her damaged car and claiming I'd deliberately destroyed it. She'd convinced 3 of my smaller clients to drop my services. That crossed a line. Burying her car had been a consequence of her own actions. Taking me to court had been frustrating but legal. But actively trying to destroy my business, that was something else entirely. I called Sarah Mitchell. "We need to talk about Brenda Peterson again." "What'd she do now?" I explained about the lost clients and Brenda's campaign against my business. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Okay, that's defamation. You have a clear case. She's making false statements that are directly harming your business. We can sue her for damages and get an injunction preventing her from contacting your clients. I don't want to sue her. I just want her to stop. Then we send a cease and desist letter. If she ignores it, we file for the injunction. If she violates that, she goes to jail for contempt. That usually gets people's attention. Sarah drafted the letter, outlining exactly what Brenda had done, how it constituted defamation and tortious interference with business relationships, and what would happen if she didn't stop immediately. We sent it certified mail, return receipt requested. Brenda signed for it on a Tuesday afternoon. By Wednesday morning, I got calls from all 3 clients who dropped me. Each one told me essentially the same story. Brenda had called them again, but this time she was backtracking, saying there had been a misunderstanding, that she'd never meant to imply I'd done anything wrong, that she was sure I was a fine contractor. They were all confused and uncomfortable, and I took the opportunity to explain what had actually happened. 2 of them rehired me on the spot. The third said he'd signed a contract with another company but would keep me in mind for the future. I thought that was finally the end of it. Spring came. I put the plow blades away and got back to landscaping work, and life returned to normal. Brenda kept a low profile, and I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she was thinking about selling her house and moving. Then, in June, I got a call from Mark Davidson. "Henry, you need to see this. Can you come over to Willowbrook?" I drove out there after finishing a job, curious and a little worried. Mark was waiting in his driveway with 2 other HOA board members. They looked angry. "What's going on?" I asked. "Come with us." They led me through the neighborhood to a house on Harmony Lane. It was Brenda's house, easily recognizable by the slightly overgrown lawn and the faded HOA violation notice on the door. But that wasn't what they wanted to show me. They led me around to the side of the house, where Brenda had a small garden area. "Look at this," Mark said, pointing to a pile of documents stacked in a plastic storage bin. I bent down to look. They were HOA files, resident information, violation notices, financial records, meeting minutes. There were hundreds of pages, maybe thousands, just sitting there in a bin in the garden, exposed to the weather. Many of them were water damaged and moldy. "She dumped all the HOA records?" I asked. "Not just dumped. Look at this." Mark pulled out a handful of pages. They were shredded, torn up, and partially burned. She destroyed them. Why would she do that? Because she's angry and petty and wanted to make it hard for the new board to operate. These records include financial information, legal documents, property deeds, and maintenance histories. Without them, we don't know what violations are outstanding, what legal issues are pending, or even how much money is supposed to be in the HOA accounts. That's got to be illegal. It is. Those are legal documents. Some of them are required by state law to be kept for a certain number of years. We've already called the police. A squad car pulled up as Mark was talking. 2 officers got out and Mark explained the situation. They took photos of the destroyed documents, collected some samples, and took statements from all of us. Then they went to Brenda's door. She answered after the 4th knock, looking irritated. "What do you want, madam? Are you Brenda Peterson?" "Yes. We need to talk to you about some missing HOA documents." "I don't have them. Talk to the new president." "Madam, we have evidence that you destroyed official records." "That's a serious offense." "I didn't destroy anything. Those documents were trash. They were legal records that you were required to turn over to your successor. Can we come in and talk about this?" Brenda tried to close the door, but one of the officers put his hand against it. "Madam, we can do this easy or hard. Easy as you talk to us now. Hard as we come back with a warrant and tear your house apart. What's it going to be?" she let them in. They were inside for about 45 minutes. When they came out, Brenda was with them and she was in handcuffs. They loaded her into the squad car and drove away. Mark and the other board members stood there watching with a mixture of satisfaction and disbelief. "Is she really being arrested?" one of them asked. "Looks like it," Mark said. The next day's local news confirmed it. Brenda Peterson had been arrested and charged with theft and destruction of property for destroying the HOA records. The state's attorney added charges related to financial mismanagement after investigators found discrepancies in the HOA accounts that suggested she'd been using community funds for personal expenses. The amounts weren't huge, maybe $3,000 or $4,000 over 2 years, but it was enough to be a felony. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't interested. The case went to trial in August. I was called as a witness to testify about the original snow removal incident, establishing Brenda's pattern of putting her own interests above the community and refusing to follow rules she didn't like. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison, suspended to 1 year of house arrest and 5 years of probation, plus restitution to the HOA for the destroyed records and stolen funds, and 200 hours of community service. She was also barred from serving on any HOA board or community organization in Illinois. I was in the courtroom when the sentence came down. Brenda sat there, stone-faced, as the judge explained what would happen next. She'd brought all of this on herself, starting with that night in the snow when she decided that her HOA authority was more important than public safety. One bad decision had cascaded into a series of increasingly poor choices, until finally she'd ended up convicted of crimes that would follow her for the rest of her life. After the sentencing, I walked out of the courthouse into the late summer sunshine. Sarah Mitchell caught up with me on the steps. "How do you feel?" she asked. Honestly, kind of bad for her. I mean, she brought it on herself, but still. This all started because she wouldn't move her car. She had a lot of chances to stop. She could have moved her car that night. She could have accepted the court's ruling and moved on. She could have not destroyed the HOA records or stolen the money. Every step of the way, she chose to make it worse. I know, it's just sad. It is, but you did nothing wrong, remember that. I drove back to McHenry County, thinking about everything that had happened. It had been 8 months since that snowy night when I'd first encountered Brenda blocking Meadowview Drive. 8 months of legal battles, stress, and drama, all because one person couldn't accept that the rules applied to her too. The following winter, I bid on the snow removal contract for Willowbrook Estates. The new HOA board, led by Mark Davidson as president, awarded it to me. They paid a fair price, and when the first snow of the season came in November, I plowed their streets without incident. People came out to thank me, to wave as I drove past, to bring me coffee and snacks. On one of those nights, Mark flagged me down. "Hey Henry, you see the house on Harmony Lane?" Brenda's old place. Yeah, she had to sell it to pay her legal fees and restitution. Young couple bought it, just moved in last week. They seem nice. That's good. I never did thank you properly for what you did. I didn't do anything except my job. That's exactly my point. You did your job, even when someone tried to stop you. You stood up to Brenda when a lot of people would have just backed down. You helped get her out of power. This neighborhood is so much better now. I looked around at the quiet streets, the houses decorated for the holidays, the sense of community that seemed to have been restored. I'm glad it worked out. Me too. Drive safe out there. I spent the rest of that winter plowing snow, and not once did anyone block my truck or question my authority. The neighborhood that had been a source of stress and legal trouble became just another stop on my route. Brenda served out her house arrest and probation, then moved away. I heard she relocated somewhere downstate, far from Willowbrook Estates and the memories of her buried Mercedes. Sometimes, on quiet winter nights when the snow is falling and I'm making my rounds, I think about that night. I think about Brenda sitting in her car, refusing to move, so certain she was in the right. I think about Rick methodically burying her vehicle under walls of snow, doing his job with a quiet determination. I think about the cascade of consequences that followed from one person's stubborn refusal to accept reality. And then I think about the people I'm helping. The families who need clear roads to get to work, to get to the hospital, to get home safely. The emergency vehicles that need access. The basic functioning of society that depends on people doing their jobs, even when it's cold and dark, and the snow won't stop falling. That's what matters. Not HOA rules or power trips or petty conflicts. Just people helping people doing their jobs, making things a little bit better. I push another load of snow to the side of the road and keep driving. There's always more work to do.